Thanks, Lillian, very much. This mic is kind of bouncing around a little bit here, so I'm going to try to stay away from it a little bit. See if I can avoid that. First, very special thank you from Kitty and me for inviting us. We go back a long way, and it just seemed to me back during my second term that women veterans should not only be recognized, but we ought to have some kind of advisory group that could work with governors, with legislators, with Commissioner of Veteran Services, and people generally in the veterans community to honor and at the same time recognize the contribution that so many of you made to this country. You know, Kitty and I feel young, and I hope we look reasonably young. With all due respect to all of you ladies, I'm married to the best looking Social Security recipient in America. But we're old enough to, we were kids during World War II. We remember the whacks and the waves. In fact, Kitty recalls that when she was a kid, there was an apartment building on Beacon Street in Brookline, down not too far from Beaconsfield Road where she grew up, where there were a bunch of waves who were building it. They were stationed there. And were a real presence in the community on Beacon Street in Brookline back in World War II. Now, I confess one thing. Kitty was a freshman when I was a senior at Brookline High School. And I was not interested in freshman women, needless to say. As a matter of fact, my great interest at that time was in one of my fellow seniors, who subsequently has now become a dear friend of ours. She's the one that's responsible for introducing me to Kitty years and years later. And she must have seen something in this connection, because we just celebrated our 47th wedding anniversary. And not only had 3 terrific kids, but we just had our 8th grandchild. We thought we were stopping at 7, and then this beautiful little girl appeared. So we now have 8, the oldest of whom will be graduating from Bates College in late May, the same college where her great-grandmother, my mother, arrived in 1921. This little Greek immigrant girl who arrived in Haverhill, folks, at the age of 9 in 1913. And thanks to her elementary school principal, a wonderful man named Stanley Gray. If you want to know why my middle name is Stanley, which is not the Greek tradition. The Greek tradition is that your middle name is your father's name. It's because she wanted to honor that man who became a second father to her. And my mother not only finished high school, itself really very unusual, but my mother was the first Greek-American young woman ever to go away to college in the United States. To go away to college. This is in 1921. She'd arrived here in 1913 and graduated in 25, taught in Amesbury, Massachusetts, among other places. And when Allie, our granddaughter, arrived at Bates, and she's had a wonderful experience there, she called us about a week later very excited. She said, "You won't believe this." She said, "I was studying in the library and I looked up and there's a picture of Yaya on the wall." That's my mother. Anyway, just want to say a few things to you about you and the advisory committee and veterans generally. You know, we went through, needless to say, as kids of World War II, we remember those millions of veterans coming back, mostly men, but some women obviously, and received back by a very grateful country. And then we went through this terrible Vietnam thing, where the country was divided, and unfortunately, too many people in the United States took it out on the folks that were serving us over there and doing what we asked them to do and what we legally required them to do, because in those days, you know, we had the draft. Now, these folks had been drafted. Now, my military service preceded that by several years. When I got out of college, I actually volunteered for the draft. I mean, I wanted to go in and do my military service, and I ended up in Korea for 16 months. Very close to DMZ, and I just want to tell you one quick story. I don't want to great length, but you know, I'm kind of a talkative guy, and I guess you have to be in politics. But this is one time where I should have kept my mouth shut. I did my first date, as we used to call it, at Dick's. And then I went down for my second 8 at camp, now Fort Gordon, just outside of Augusta, Georgia, in a Signal Corps unit. And then we got our orders. We were going to Korea from Seattle, okay. But I had played the trumpet in high school. Now, I hadn't touched it, and any of you who have played a brass instrument know that if you don't practice it on a regular basis, your lip, as we say, gets shot. I mean, you've got to toughen that thing up. And I hadn't played it, you know, years. But the call went out at Fort Lewis in Tacoma. They're looking for bandsmen. So I said, gee, this creepers, I mean, I'm headed for God knows where in Korea. Maybe this is an opportunity to be part of a military band. And sure enough, as soon as I put my name in, they yanked my orders. My buddies went off, I thought, to Korea. And then, of course, I flunked the audition. I mean, the folks that play in the Army bands are professionals. And I just had practiced, you know, for a year. So 3 weeks later, I got on another ship and I headed for Korea. And I was assigned to one side, 7 miles from the DMZ. And in those days, there was nothing up there. And that had been in the middle of the actual fighting. I got there in 55 after the truce had been signed. And a few months later, I was down in Seoul on the PX, and I saw one of my Brookline buddies who had actually gone through basic with me and so on. I said, hey, where are all of my pals from Gordon? He said, did you hear? When the boat stopped in Yokohama, the orders of your unit were changed. They're all in Japan. Sometimes it's better to keep your mouth. In any event, we've got to leave you a little early because I'm speaking at the College of Professional Studies graduation at Northeastern, where I teach most of the time, as you know. And since the president's speaking at Heinz Auditorium, I have no idea how long a walk I'm going to have from wherever the security perimeter is. So we've got to head down there, but we're going to spend a little time breaking bread with you. And I just want to say to all of you that I feel so good about the fact that we created this advisory committee, that you've been actively involved, working as I hoped you would to reach out to the veteran community, especially the women's veteran community. And one of the best things, I've not been a fan, I certainly was not a fan of the invasion of Iraq, and I'm very troubled, as I'm sure all of us are, as to what's going to happen in Afghanistan, and is there a military solution and so on. But I think one of the most gratifying things about what's happened is that whether one agrees with the policy that sent our troops to the Middle East or not, I think almost to a person, Americans have welcomed back these veterans of ours, men and women alike. And I don't have to tell you, these days, a woman's role in the military is very different, I suspect, from what it was for many of you, including combat roles. But the fact that we've welcomed these folks back with thanks and appreciation and gratitude, I think, is really terrific and says a lot for the American people as well as the folks that serve us. So thank you for having us. Great to be with you. And I just want